society. It's just supporting the environment. The Sustainable Dream Festival is something that we've been putting together for a long time, for over a year. We've been doing dream events. 2 years ago, we did the Dream Stream to support the music community after the coronavirus, and we started to think of this way that we can incorporate music and art to create a funnel to have people more interested in the activists and the nonprofit organizations and the environmental scientists that are working so hard to make the world a better place. And so that's the idea with the Dream Gatherings, is that all of our music events start off with a presentation, an environmental or intellectual or academic or nonprofit organization speaking about what they do for the community, what they do to help people, what they're doing in this environment, just to make the world a better place. Are you trying to bump that mic up a little bit more? Just no, I want you to. We can hear it. All right. Yo. All right. All right. Well, I don't want the monitors to get feedback though. That's gonna create feedback. All right. Then never mind. Okay. You're tripping. I'm tripping. All right. I just want you guys to hear this important conversation. So I am so appreciative that you guys are all here. I'm so appreciative that all these people are coming out to just enjoy each other's company, enjoy society, and bring positivity to the world, because that's what these events are about. It's all about creating a space for people to express themselves artistically, or to express themselves musically, or to express themselves through intellectual academics and organizational social justice and activism. There's so many people who are doing so many incredible things for the world, and we want to bring light to those people. And I feel like it's our responsibility as musicians and artists who have an outreach into the community to utilize that to bring attention to the people who need attention, who need support, to the people who are working to make our lives better every single day. And so it's been an incredible journey for me to put these events together, to network with environmental activists and environmental scientists and social justice organizations. It's been very eye-opening for me to see how much is going on behind the scenes and how many dedicated people there are who are spending all their time to support the world. And so I joined all these incredible organizations like Extinction Rebellion and Declare Emergency, Code Pink, and I've been talking with the Poor People's Campaign, and it's been such an incredible journey for me to go to their meetings, go to their protests, their marches, and to learn about what they do and see how I can get involved. And I can tell you that it has changed my life, and I feel like I have a new purpose in my life to just bring people together to know and to try and make change. I believe if there is a change that you see can be made in the world, then it is your responsibility to do what you can to make the world better. And so I encourage you guys to check out all of the organizations that are listed on the sustainablegatherings.com website and engage in these organizations that have done so much for the community and working to make our society in this local region a better place. So and thank you guys for being here at the Sustainable Gatherings. So my name is John Jon space EYE. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about myself. I am a math and science educator, and I also do music and art events with Lucid District is my music and art collective. And we've been doing events throughout the DMV for like 5-6 years. I've been teaching professionally for like 7-8 years. And, I really like to engage with people, inspire people to see the world in a different way, inspire people to question the world and to learn and to research, about their surroundings. I teach mostly like calculus and physics and chemistry. And I like to, and also algebra, and I want to like engage people, the students, to think critically for themselves. That's one thing that I always incorporate in my lessons. So for example, when I'm teaching geometry and I'm teaching about the Pythagorean theorem, I show them, how you can prove this, right? That's one thing that I feel like our education system never does. They say, here's the equation, go use it. But I show them with diagrams how this can be proven, how ancient Greeks and ancient Indian people from India have discovered this relationship, such as Pythagoras, um, between the sides of a right triangle. And through your own personal journey, it creates a more memorable experience in your mind. This is something that you personally discovered, and you personally see the relationships. It's not something that has been told to you that exists, like it was written on some ancient tablet and we just accept that it's true. But that's not what math is, right? Math is provable, otherwise we wouldn't be using it. And so I encourage people to think about the world and think about the relationships that are guiding us and the relationships that we use in everyday life. And, think for yourself on why we do these things that we do and why we build our society the way that it is. And, make those conclusions on your own. I think about how the greater infrastructure of the world is, how we create concrete, jungles and that we're living in, and how we have bigger social structures like governments, and we have education systems, social systems, health and medical systems. And I think those things have been built with very particular intentions throughout centuries and millennia, that we've been progressing as a human race to try and make a most efficient society for everyone. And it's important for all of us to engage in that process, to question how our society and our human race should move forward. It's constantly evolving. We're constantly taking things that may have been going on for 1,000 years or 100 years and replacing them with better methods or improving them. And this is something that happens every single day. And so it's something you can take a part of to progress the human race. If you see something and if you have been researching something that you think can change, or you see a relationship and you're wondering why these two things are related, why are highways built the way that they are, why are medical systems designed the way that they are, and which roles people are playing in everyday life, of your local community, whether it's through the government or through businesses. This shouldn't be something that we just close off to, but something we actually help progress. And, unless you're taking part in your community, you're going to be subject to someone else controlling, your role in society. And so that's why I think it's important to be critical of, everything that goes on in your life. And that's why I think it's important that we bring people together for these nonprofit organizations that have spent so much time, trying to actively change the world for the better. So I want to question, how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel that you have a chance to engage in community development, or do you feel like it is difficult to make any changes, real changes in your surroundings, whether it's within your personal life, your family, or the greater community or your workplace? Or do you feel that those opportunities are there, like you haven't been taking them or you haven't been seeking them? I know that once you see and realize that there are opportunities for you to make changes in your workplace or in your lifestyle or in your community, you start to see them all the time. Like, for example, after this conversation, you might go back to work or to the park and realize, like, this park should be designed differently. There should be more lighting, in this park, or, the way we have our work roles at work could be restructured. I just realized, you suddenly realize how many changes you can make. All you have to do is think about the fact that you can make those changes. A lot of people feel like they just can't make changes. They're stuck like a cog in the wheel, but it's not true. We're all like fish, a school of fish, and every single fish plays like 100th. If there's 100 fish, every fish plays 100th of a role of guiding where you go. You know what I mean? And as you swim, if you want to swim north, and the more you keep on the north side of the community, more fish are going to be inspired to follow you in that direction. And we shouldn't be afraid to push society forwards. And if we all actively engage in the community, we can do that for the better. So do you guys feel like there's opportunities to engage and make changes, or do you feel like they're difficult to find? Or do you feel like you've tried and it's difficult, or you never thought about it, or you've been so focused on your own life, which we all are, it's hard to really try and change your whole workplace when you're just trying to get to work, you know? So I just want to open up. Does anyone have any thoughts about what I was just talking about, how you can engage in the community? Through conversation, right? That's important. That's what, and that's, I like that you said that because that's one of my main goals with these events. Like, yes, we have the presentations in the day, but you know, these people are these people who are doing this work are always here. Like, you don't have to just talk to the Poor People's Campaign during her 1 hour presentation. You know, she's probably going to hang out for a while, and the whole organization is accessible, and so is, you know, Extinction Rebellion, Code Pink, and like just having those conversations and creating a space to have those conversations. And even if you just coming to these events, I want to inspire people to feel like they can open up about what they feel about society. That's what I kind of feel like this idea of the dream gatherings and the dream festivals is, so people can activate their dreams for the community. So people can activate what they think a perfect dream society or community or dream environment would be. And, you know, it's not like you go to a music event where everyone's having fun and you're like, hey, you know, we should change our tax infrastructure. You know, people are going to be like, what the heck is this guy talking about, right? We're at a party. But that's what I want this place to be. I want people to feel like if they have something, then they're inspired to make a difference in society. You know, we bring like-minded people, no matter who you are, like, get your voice heard. And not only that, but it could be channeled directly through these international activism organizations, and your voice can be amplified throughout the world. And, you know, my friend Anders, who has a TV show, Songpo TV, and has been doing a lot of networking with these organizations and working with me to put together the Sustainable Dream Festivals. And he has been, you know, pulled by these organizations, and he's now doing media like for like 3 different nonprofit organizations, and he's networking with international environmental activists, and he's constantly creating a global conversation. And so if you come to Extinction Rebellion, you know, protests in DC, you know, my friend Anders will be there with his TV cameras broadcasting to the world. And like part of this is just taking these, like as simple as coming to one of these music shows your friend performs, and or you just wanted to go check out the camping, and then you might have a conversation, and but there is a funnel here to get more involved in these organizations, and then to get more involved in the global international community of activists. And I'm trying to just create that funnel, so just a simple conversation here could spark something that changes around the whole world. So don't be afraid to have that conversation. Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, Alexandra? I'm so glad you said that. That's really inspiring. You know, it's like really literally breaking the glass ceiling, as they say. You know what I mean? And I just hear a lot of people use that term with, you know, civil rights. I know the glass ceiling in particular with women's rights. You know, like so many women have pushed so hard to, for example, to have the right to vote or to get like equal pay. And like even if you only make tiny progress, you're opening doors for every woman who is ever going to come after you. And you know, it's so important to, even if you just slip through that crack, like in as a woman, and become a CEO or like a professional athlete or an actress doing a role that is normally for men. And like every single, even if you do that one thing, you know, you open the doors for thousands of women for generations. So thank you for literally breaking the glass ceiling, right? And breaking through those cracks, you know, allowing to create a pathway for others to follow. So does anyone have anything else to say? Any questions about what I was talking about? Yeah. 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 That's so great.
Try and turn their life around. And, and it's like, and if DC can do something like that, and these programs have been functioning for like more than 4 years, and have been sustainable and working, and got the water's cleaner, the parks are cleaner, the streets are cleaner, and then you go to a place like Richmond where like every single little tree you see growing out of the grass has like a million cigarette butts around it, and nobody's doing anything. And it's like, well, how do we get these programs to spread to other places, and who do we talk to, to
Yeah, and that's one thing, the power of media. I think like media is one of the most powerful things we have. As an artist, or even as a musician or a painter or an activist or community organizer, like media really brings power to everything you're doing, and it's important to have people doing media, like to document these programs like in Asheville, and so that other cities can know, what's going on around the world. So thank you for that point. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything that they want to say?
How do you recognize the other people making change around you? What are some things to look for?
How do you recognize who's making change, or how do you?
So that maybe you can follow them, that was the stream. So
Yeah.
what are some ways to recognize the people you're looking around?
Well, good thing you asked, because that's what these events are kind of about. I feel like a lot of people just need that first introduction, to like a nonprofit or activism group. Once you meet them, like it becomes a real thing rather than just something you saw online. And these are real people really doing this. And, of course you can find them online, and research. There's so many ways to research. but that's why I wanted to bring it in person with these dream gatherings. So I'm glad you say that, because that's a really good transition into the next presentation. So the next presentation is going to be is a nonprofit organization that is working really hard to make the world a better place, and I've been really inspired talking to them and talking to Zilla, who has been doing so much for the community. And so I invited her out here to talk about what she does and how she engages with the community with her organization, which is the Poor People's Campaign. And so I'd like to call her up here, and we're going to move on with the next presentation. Thank you guys for listening to my presentation. And also, I just want to encourage you guys to keep considering these things we've been talking about, right? Even after the conversations, we're all hanging out, listening to the music, you know, watching the painters. You know, the conversation doesn't end, right? So we're going to be talking about, you know, positive topics all night, you know, how we can engage in the community, you know. So keep considering these conversations and continue having these conversations throughout the night.
So it's kind of hard to see, but this is my presentation behind me. Hello, everyone. My name is Zilla Wesley. I am a part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. Who has heard of the Poor People's Campaign in here? Perfect, a few people. So we are taking up the mantle from the 1968 campaign to continue the work that Martin Luther King and his homies were doing. Because in 2017, we did a audit of the United States, and come to find out, poverty has gotten worse in this country and not better in the 50 years. So I'm just gonna give, for those who don't know, it's a video of a brief history.
Social justice. But with such a broad agenda, will it find enough support at this polarized time? We start with a look at the campaign. Shortly before his death in 1968,
Okay.
to include calls for next, an effort to revive a famous movement of the 1960s focused on reducing
Oh, I could just connect it to your thing, your computer. Mm-hmm.
next, an effort to revive.
All right.
Wait, no, that's my computer.
Yeah.
I could pull up the video.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Perfect.
Next, an effort to revive a famous movement of the 1960s.
Okay, it's connected.
Here's some information.
All right. All right. So fuck it. Oops, sorry. Fuck it. All right. So that was just a brief history, but like truly, or the now. But the history is what we're rooted in is the welfare rights movement and the 40 days or the 6 weeks that people spent downtown, and it was black, white people of all sorts living together and really doing what we're doing here now, They lived together, they learned together, they had arts and culture together, they did meals together. They really built the community and started transforming into the beloved community that everyone believed in and that the powers that be do not want to see. So this is how it started with Mother's Day March, and then it ended with pepper spray and fire bombs from the DC National Guard that came in. So the goals of the campaign are to switch the narrative, build power, and really impact elections. And I mean that in the sense of we are deeply, deeply political and nonpartisan, because no matter who's in office, the people should have the right to understand that we put them in office, we can take them out. They have better health care than most of us put together sometimes, and yet we don't want to fight them. So some of the evils that we are challenging, one is systematic racism, two, ecological devastation, poverty, the war economy, and just this distorted moral narrative of Christian evangelicalism. So that's some of the stuff we're doing. And so with our research, we have researched that there are 140 million low-income people in the country. And this is what it looks like. Children, 52%, elders, 41%, black folk, 65%, on and on. So, and the reality is, and this is one narrative, that there's always more poor people in the world, but or more poor black people in this country. The reality is it's more poor white people, because there's just more white people in this country, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also the way that it's been ingrained in us of the divide and conquer of strategy, instead of having people love each other. Another way to do it, how many people are really making less than $15 an hour? A lot of people. Because, I live in DC, and to really afford a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment there, you need to make at least over $31 an hour. And that's just for rent. You haven't hit groceries yet, you haven't done utilities yet, you haven't done any of that. So here's some laws and policies that have been put in place over time to really help with the divide and conquer. I always highlight the John Punch case, because it was a time, and there's been times like throughout time or this country's history of this colonial project of people working together across race and across gender and across some of these barriers that they want us to keep fighting against, so we can lose focus on the task at hand. And here's some more activities that have been put in place to either take us back or move us forward. All right, so June 18th is a way that we're trying to mobilize to bring everyone together, because we know and we feel, and a lot of people feel, we're having a moral crossroads in this country and in this world right now, and that we're calling everyone to a meeting, to a gathering, to really say that we are here on Pennsylvania Avenue, in the mall on June 18th, to really just say that we aren't going to be silent anymore, and that we are here to say that we're tired of this, and we want to do better, and we know there's a better way of living, and we are just trying to get there. So with that said, it's a Saturday, so come on down, like the video says. And with that said, let's open it up for discussion, Let's talk about it. We need people to help us mobilize, or even just bring yourself and your church or your children, your family, because we really want to make this a transformative event, so we can really show that and you kind of said it, right? That we're not alone in these communities, and that we are trying to stand up together and say, F this system that's been effing us for a long time. And I mean that with nonviolence, because we're a nonviolent movement, But we are in a place where we need to just say, I and we do cry out the fact like somebody is hurting a lot of us, and the system's getting worse. And the fact is, the pandemic showed us a lot of stuff. It opened up stuff that a lot of people already felt, a lot of people have seen. And so we're trying to, on June 17th, forever who's in town, we're having a community dinner and then also a memorial service at Lincoln Memorial for all the people we lost during COVID, because we are going back to normal, but we've lost so much. We have, as a world, as a country, we're going through so much grief and conflict, and people just don't want to honor that within themselves sometimes and within their community. And so it's time for us to stand up and honor that. It's time for us to really just say, like, we're here together. I'm going to stand with you, and we need to debate and hug and come to some conclusions. Also, agree to disagree sometimes. And the thing is that at the end of the day, we know who the enemy is, and it's none of us. We are in a space, and it's a time and place, and June 18th is it is going to be a transformative event, so we can just continue on, because so the way that this is going is that people are hurting, and instead of yelling out that they're hurt, they're retreating in, because it's hard to stand up for something and you feel like you're standing up by yourself. So the reality is, we're going to stand up together and shout together and scream together and cry together and laugh together, so we can make a change. So thank you. So I don't know if anyone has any feelings or questions or anything, or even we can just continue the conversation that we had earlier, because the reality is, our reality is all over, but we just need to just own it and respect it and talk it out, because sometimes talking about being poor in America is scary, and people will look down upon you, but, so. No, I love that. And we need to live into that and find those places, and or even try to start one, like a half a one, because, also at the end of the day, we're just trying to be self-sufficient and eat and live and stuff too. Because to your point, like, we're always taught and we've been conditioned to just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? Half of us don't have straps, the other half don't have boots, and that's the reality of the situation. Because even if we look at this, right, Build Back Better, if it passed, would have cost $170 billion per year. However, the military defense budget is $778 billion per year. So even if we just got a quarter of that, what could have that done to our communities? We could have started systems. We could have gave people housing. And then even how they treat our veterans when they come back, right? A lot of our veterans are unhoused. Yeah, because the DC affordable housing waiting list is 30 years. 30 years. It's making it worse. And then even with that, though, yeah, there's a lot of people who, if you own property, you can get a visa. So it's a lot of property that's just sitting empty that somebody could live in, you know, because in this country, there's a lot of empty houses, and right, but instead, yeah, because here's the thing, they keep changing the tactics and strategies all the time, and that's also the challenge. Yeah. Yeah, and even some of it is not even for the average Joe to even get it and flip it over. It's because, like, a friend of mine lives in Detroit. They bought a lot of the abandoned houses or took people's homes because of the water crisis, right? And they flattened them out. They are worth more as grass than a house because we treat each other expendably. The government does also. And the challenge is, and what I call for is everyone here and who's listening, is that we start treating each other and ourselves like we're no longer expendable. Because the reality is, that's why they get away with a lot of stuff that they get away with. Because we don't stand up, fight back, none of that, you know, because they keep us so confused and infighting and just, all over the place and distracted. And the reality is they're slipping stuff from right under us, slowly and surely. Well, not even slowly, fast and surely. Because gentrification in DC has reached the fifth wave, and no one has studied the fifth wave. And it's like that in a lot of places. And even in San Francisco now, it's very problematic. And the fact is that people who are making decent amount of money are living in homes, are not living in homes, are living in their cars or sleeping in tents and all of that. So it's one of those things, again, where it's like we need to see there's the problem. We have the problems. Now we need the prescription for the solutions. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It is ridiculous. And like call it out and speak on it. And sometimes it's like yet again it's really uncomfortable to have these conversations about money and poverty, right? And like the systems we're living within. Cuz even the history of tip workers is rooted in Jim Crow, which is rooted in racism, systematic racism that we know the powers that be slightly made up to keep us divided and conquered, right? And so that's the problem because, like, West Virginia, we've been there a lot, has a great history of the miners, no matter immigrant, black, white, working together. Because even like they were called, like one of the histories of the term redneck is from the bandanas that everyone was wearing, right? And the Blair Mountain, they had a resurgence there, and now the history, and then they got what they wanted, and they got their needs met. However, they're now trying to wipe away that history by blowing up the mountain slowly and just taking it away, because they don't want us to know the history that we have in this country of people working together and standing up together and working together to move forward. You know, because that's one of our sayings in the Poor People's Campaign is forward together, not one step back. Because if we don't move forward together, what's going to happen? And even like the earth, right? If we don't start respecting Mother Earth and Father Sky, like what's going to happen? Right. And yeah. No, because and to your point, West Virginia, a Dutch company came in because they were allowed to come in and build a plant right across from a school. And their emissions are crazy. And they're allowed to do that here in the United States. And our government let that happen. But they can't do that in their own country. Like, let's make that make sense. And now, and it's only been up for a few months, and the kids are already getting sick. Cancer's happening. No, they're not. You know? So, and it's one of those things, because I'm with you. We're either going to sink together or swim together. And it's a thing where these billionaires are going to space to start building a Mars thing. And they're going to have a class of people that they're going to take. But they're like purely the working class to probably try to build some stuff. Because I don't really see Jeff Bezos building anything myself. That's just me. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's whomever it is, whoever's in charge. It's who's in charge, but who's always here are the people. So I just know that I think my time's coming up. Oh yes.
Wall Street speculators, using all the turmoil and fear and all the angst from COVID and the Ukraine war as a way to make money and to sell our economy short. Everyone's making money off all of the fear that's going on right now, right? So I really appreciate your work. My question for you was, what sort of funds are available with HUD for small home grants? Because when you start looking at our financial system, like if you look at a basic budgeting like platform for the average family, you're not supposed to spend more than like 30% of your income on housing, right? Like I don't know anybody in urban cities that could say they spend 30% of their income on housing unless they're extremely wealthy. Like I really don't. I've made a lot of money. I lived in Loudoun County. I sold my mansion last year. People could think I was successful, but you know what? I couldn't afford to live in Loudoun County. My taxes were $8,000 a year. I moved to the Shenandoah Valley. But when you look at like how to reset things, most people pay way too much in mortgages. They work at jobs they hate for years till they die or their health quits. If people could buy cheap land and build affordable small homes that were sustainable, and you could create gardens and a footprint for them to have solar, be off the grid, and it not cost them much, like under $100,000 like per family. Like I believe this is possible. I'm a builder. I'm a designer. I'm a landscape architect. Like all this stuff is possible. I'm wondering, like in your research, if what funds are available through HUD and what kind of lobbying do we need to do for our government to get more funds so that people could actually start out with owning their own home and a sustainable platform of someplace where they want to live and where they're not a slave to banks for the rest of their lives or a slave to some sort of rigged system where the inflation's going to blow up all their investments and all their savings. You know, I'll yield the floor.
No, so here's the thing. That's a great question. And things what I do know is that there was money given for places for housing, right? It did not trickle down because with some of these packages, it went to people buying boats. It went to people's vacations places. It did not go where the money needed to go. I will just say this. But your question is great. I'm going to write that down when I sit down, and I'm going to research that because I do think and believe you are, I know you are right. There's a better sustainable way for us to all live. And even because it is a looming housing crisis. Credit card uses and credit card debt went up 44%. So that says that people don't have the liquid money that they think they have.
And the 20% inflation in housing prices is reflective of the inflation on the dollar.
Right.
Because they've been printing epic amounts of money for the last 2 years. 2 years. If you look at the money supply, so all this is all related.
Right.
And it's not political, like you said, because it serves or doesn't serve all of us, right?
Right.
And most of the time, it doesn't serve us.
No, and I think that's the challenge because it serves a few, and you see a few stories of like this successful person who did this and got themselves out of poverty and blah, 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 is not the greater story of the whole. Because the collective is the whole and the whole is the collective, right? And that's sometimes a challenge because we are so busy honed in on just trying to keep up with the quote unquote Joneses. And the reality is the Joneses might be in debt and don't even know it. So like, thank you for sharing your story because like that's real and that's why a part of the campaign is about people really sharing the truth about what's happening. Because one of our fallen friends and family, she worked hard in a trailer in Lyons County, Mississippi, $100,000 for that trailer, had mold. She called the city numerous amount of times to do the sewer system, and they never did, and that led to health problems for her and her child. So when COVID hit, bam, took her out. Like, So like, I thank you for that. So I guess one more, and then we'll go on, and I'll be here for a while, just sitting in that seat.
One thing to say real quick. One thing that people don't often think about is that this isn't just, like, obviously people need, like, a lot of resources. All these resources that we've been talking about could severely improve a lot of people's lives. But at the same time, like, when you're comparing it to the budgeting, like, we gotta understand this is also an investment. Like, one other aspect of some of my talks about education is that, this isn't just, like, to help kids and to help the community. Like, this is the #1 investment that we can make. If we invest in people to have housing, that could return to the total, like, just if you're an economic standpoint, that could return to the national GDP, like, 100-fold.
Right.
You know what I mean? If there's so many people, so many stories of these people who just needed that little help, and next thing you know, they're like these successful people throughout society, and we normally only hear about the ones who reach like massive success, but there's a lot of people out there who were down with just a temporary time in their life. It was just that one incident, that one car crash, or that one injury. Often it's something like medical, or like something beyond their control, like financial insecurity in their family, and they just are just one tough landlord who's just being a dick. and like they just need that one help, that one skip and a hop over that speed bump, and they're going to go about the rest of their life as a productive and helpful society member. You know what I mean? And but so for a lot of people, that one speed bump turns into, you know, a flat tire, which turns into, you know, being lost in the desert, so to speak. And it's like all they really needed was, you know, a little lift to the gas station.
No,
And
yeah.
it's just like if we, and it's not just a service that, you know, should be provided to the community, but it's an investment that you're going to get 100-fold. And you know, I've researched just education and how powerful it is. Like I looked up like the top 10 like investments that a society or a country could make, and there was like, you know, infrastructure or like energy and like housing and stuff, and some of those things have like a 5-year return or like a 10-year return. But the number one most powerful historical investment that a nation can make that leads to long-term success is education. And it takes like a 30-year return on your investment. But the return of work and value that comes to your nation was 100-fold, as opposed to the other, which was like you invest in roads, you get like maybe 10-fold from the original investment into your economy. But it was like 100-fold just from education. This was going over throughout centuries of data. It was like the most powerful investment that you could possibly make is to educate your kids. And obviously, going along with that is giving them a place to live, you know, giving them resources to even be educated, and to even just give people resources to get to work. You know what I mean? It's not just a charity. This is like a financial advancement that we should be making.
Yeah, and to your point, because a good example of that is the child tax credit, right? We saw it took a lot of families above the poverty line, right? And people had 3 meals a day. People were able to go out and invest in the community and go to that local business and leave somebody a better tip than they would if it wasn't that. And so the fact they took that away from millions of children says the feelings about, if we aren't investing in our children, then what are we investing in, you know? And yes, but I think you had a question. Yeah, you.
How are we doing on time, Shay?
All right.
All right. Testing. Is this a good space? I actually didn't have a question, but I feel like, okay. You want?
And there's a question back there.
Okay, I'll still say one thing though, and then pass it on. I think a lot of us feel that we are all waking up to things like this. I feel like more and more people are thinking about this and talking about this, and I feel like there is a momentum, a good and positive momentum towards creating things that we have never seen before that are going to work for us. I think we just have to keep finding community, building community, educating ourselves about what we're interested in. Try to be the best you can be, so you can like affect things in your own little way. Everyone wants to save the world, but not many people want to help their mom with the dishes. So even small acts of kindness around us can help collectively get us where we want to go. I think for resources too, good websites that people are like, well, how do we do it? How do we do it? There's some organizations that have extensive lists of solutions from like an individual level to community to governmental level. Regeneration.org is a good one. And so is projectdrawdown.org, very aligned with like the UN sustainability goals, everything from like waste to water to affordable housing to women's education. There's solutions out there, and I think all of us are buzzing against each other, all wanting to participate in a new story. And I think it's happening, and we should pat ourselves on the back sometimes. And if we screw up and we are stuck in a post-apocalyptic planet, well, start learning your survival skills because the base level human survival skills to be a wild human are the same base level foundations for a village. Even something as simple as getting in a circle and passing around a talking stick is how you can have your own little government. And if you work on that, you have a connection to nature, and when you teach your kids to have a connection to nature, then we may all be too far gone, but the next generation, as us, as their elders, may be in the perfect position to do everything we want to see. So we may not even see it in our generation, but you know, if each one teaches 10, you know, we can get the next generation to carry the torch. Because I think we're already making a lot of old hippies proud here and there with some of the stuff we're doing.
No,
I guess that's all I...
No, and that's so important, right? Is even just to put the information out there. Like, put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter. I mean, shit, make a big sign and put it in front of your house, right? Because the reality is sometimes to even navigate some of the stuff, you need a whole day job, you know? Because people are just so focused in on survival and not thrival. I know that's not a word, but thriving. Yeah, thank you. And so, yeah, and so, yeah, Google it. And that's like what I live by. I want people not just to be on survival mode every day, but thrive so we can enjoy art more and paint and sing and be joyous and just love who we want and not get married because we think it's the right thing to do or we're financially obligated or whatever, but even, or not, you know, it's just so much, but yes.
Could I ask you one more question?
I think it was the guy in the back.
One of the things that John mentioned was education. Personally, people is doing that, but I was wondering if your organization has thought about education, not education from like traditional education. One of the things that I have seen that is growing a lot is apprenticeship programs that you actually can go learn something like plumbing, electricity, programming, something like go and learn a skill because the university system is a racket. I think like that's just like bullshit. Like,
Yeah, no, and student debt, okay?
yeah, exactly. So are you pushing anything from that front? Like, are you getting in touch with apprenticeship, the schools that provide apprenticeship, and are you providing that information back to the community that needs to thrive?
So we're in 40 different states, and so each community handles how they function in their own way. So I will just say in the DC area, we help where we can, right? And that's all we can do. Like we'll send out listservs and all of that. And to your point, education's super important in DC. Matter of fact, bought all the programs back that they took away for a long time, which was mechanical engineering and like learning how to put a vacuum cleaner together and painting and all of that. So like education is important. What does that look like? But like on a national level, like doing things like this, like teach-ins, political education, that's also education. Sitting down and just talking with somebody about really what's happening or even what's in their life is also education. So we have education from all aspects. We're even, you know, some of our states are a part, like the DEC Collective is a part of their collective. Because it's something where like, it's been almost 2 years, we haven't paid student debt and the world hasn't crashed, right? So let's just end it, you know? And just have people just start over. Well, not even start over, or get a start where we can actually afford a place. Because that's why, because DC's too damn high, and I chose to live as an organizer, and I'm not, you know, making 3 figures of nothing, so like I'm still at home, you know? So that's the reality of the conditions I'm living in and a lot of other people. So with that said, it's one of those things where education is super important, and all work, but to your point, like, and I was thinking this earlier, all labor is important labor in this chain of this world, right? Because the reality is, people are like, I need to do this, to live this American dream, right? But we need everything to survive, from the people who put in our cable to our trash people, to our gardeners, to like shit. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, excuse me. Stuff. everybody, because that's really where we need, and all labor is important. Because even tomorrow, shout out to Labor Day, International Labor Day, and we need to just hold up, because that's actually when our Labor Day is supposed to be. But the United States changed it to another time and made it about sales and buying a vacuum cleaner for cheap and a microwave for $10 instead of holding up our workers who make this country run.
Totally. Can I ask one more question? So there was an Atlantic article that came out, I believe it was last year, about how that one of the loopholes in the Patriot Act was that foreign investment could fund development projects in U.S. cities. So a lot of the gentrification has actually been funded by foreign money who are laundering their money through our real estate market. And this was in an Atlantic article. This isn't some conspiracy theory website.
Oh, no, because it's parts of D.C. that are owned by certain places.
Yeah, and so like I've been in the DC construction market for the last 17 years, and like I was digging big holes for a massive construction company, like the gantry that just got built by unions. I dug the hole for that, and the developer that we were working for, he goes, oh yeah, this is for lobbyists. He's like, these guys come to some of these, $10,000 a month luxury condo. They come like once a year, and so these are the people pushing out affordable housing, and like, I'm just wondering, like, I think there needs to be a lot more awareness to this. I think people need to know the dirt behind all these Russian oligarchs and all this stuff going on, all the dirty money that's been washed through our country. And it totally affects the poor people and the middle class.
I mean, you're right. And
that's all I have to say.
And to your point, the middle class is shrinking. Some people don't even believe there's a middle class anymore. I mean, and it's really just, we're getting by to barely scraping by to thank God I could buy my pills and food this month, And so, and with that said, you're right, because it's leveled, because even a friend of mine had a job where they used to stand in line for lobbyists to get into like some of the congressional buildings, and they would get $700 to stand in line for 2 hours. Just drop like that. So with that said, it's like wild. But you, so I mean, and there it is. So but it's one of the things we need to call it up and step up and talk about it, because these lobbyists are strong. They're together. And also they're getting more diverse looking in a lot of ways. So and even co-opting language and doing a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, my name is Eddie, and I believe in duocracy, like what are we gonna do about it? And so many talks, so many people talk, and like the information that you're saying, the information that we're saying is like kind of known, even if people ignore it, because we are struggling with like, how do we do the next thing? What's the next thing? And so I remember somebody mentioning to me how there was this whole war that started because these women just wanted to get bread for their babies. So they're like, we don't have the resources literally to be able to feed our children. So, hey, village people, let's go get that bread, literally, And so they went and got that bread. And then there was a whole multi-country war because of it, sparked this huge conflict. And the resources are often the issue, the thing that creates issues between people, right? So there's so much like abundance around us, and like this whole globalism aspect and being able to get our resources from like shipped across the world because it's cheaper somehow. Like, I don't know what, like, having studied finance and economics, it's still kind of like, how do we get to that point? How does that make sense still, right? I'm all about like relocalizing. How do we get our stuff here? Like, look, we're sitting in something that could be producing milk for us, literally right now. This is the remnants of what was the local economy, right? And so like, how do we come back to this and reactivate it so that the people that the resources are like, another topic, land ownership, what is that all about? But how do we work within this whole scenario that we're in, right? Yeah, cheap pieces of land. I mean, like everybody used to, like, didn't people at one point get paid to go take land up? in a certain part of the history of this country.
Yeah.
Right? So like now it's like, so how do we do that, right? And so I don't want us to depend on the government handing money out to us. You know, I think that subsidizing these kinds of technologies and these kinds of efforts is helpful. It's super helpful. I mean, the oil industry wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't getting the subsidies from the government, right? Like, we're paying for it to be our energetic resource. So how can we start shifting it that way? And it's so easy to get caught up in all of this, like, he said, she said, this and that, and da-da-da, and then all of a sudden now this person slapped this person across the face, so like forget about the thing that we talked about last week. This is new, right?
So, and I think that's the thing. That's why we need to, too many distractions, and we need to get into step, right?
Yeah.
Because we are literally infighting over stuff that is taking literally food out of our mouth, right? Because you said it so perfectly. It's time, because that's why I'm here, to see if you would bring your collectives and your friends and your families to June 18th, where we are calling a meeting to show that we are here. Because I always use Horton Hears a Who. We are that little flower and the people in it, as we're getting dipped in oil. And our oil is shit, we're about to be flooded and drowned because of the global warming. And I think we can do better. I know that we can achieve it and think about it and start getting back to the basics of this, and like have people pay their workers. Because people are getting so much money as they're sleeping, people's whole salaries as they're sleeping. How many billionaires became super billionaires during a pandemic where they barely could pay people or give them protection, right? You know, and it just shows that, you know, they treat our workers as expendable. They treat our minds as expendable, that we don't know or understand that there's a better way. So we need to start speaking and transforming and manifesting into the world that we want to see, and like start calling out that we need to take it back to basics. We need to, like, you know, we can build stuff here if we need. Well, we can build stuff here. Just pay our workers. Pay so people can live. A living wage, yes.
So I wanted to speak on what you said about food, you know, because there is a problem with food insecurity, you know. And so something that's been happening in some cities that has been, you know, happening as a movement, as people are going into, like, you know, their local parks, and you know, and the cities already pay so much money for landscaping in these parks. Why not plant permaculture gardens in all of the, you know, as many parks as you can, where there's fruit trees and asparagus patches, you know?
But think about it, that's free food. Because, I mean, and that's why some of our allergies are so bad, right? Because we have a lot of male trees and the pollen, right? And the reality is, having a place where you could just take an apple and eat it as you're going to school, what?
And why isn't that something that's taught in school? Is instead of like paying your landscaper to spray poison on your grass to kill the bees, you know, to kill all your native plants, you know, like, why aren't we taught about these plants in school? You know, like, why aren't people taught how to grow food in school? You know, like, why aren't people taught how to, like, create a permaculture garden at their home where they could have an asparagus patch for 20 years, you know?
Well,
and
it's not picture perfect, right? Because that's what some of us are striving for, is this weird perfection of the white picket fence and the labradoodle and the 2.3 children or 2.5 children and the good-looking husband and the Tesla and or minivan and just going to soccer.
A lot of pressure. Like, I'm an engineer here at work, so I'm a white collar worker. You know, I make decent money, okay? There is a lot of peer pressure to, like, keep with your kind in a way. It's actually pretty crazy.
No, I mean, and you're right, because even like for me,
Like, literally, one of my friends is like now had her second kid. All right, and I'm in this conversation, and people are telling her she has to move out of our neighborhood that she's in right now, which is a perfectly good neighborhood, just out a little bit further to be with more people who are, I don't know what she said, like
mean, and I can see that because I.
How do you fix that conversation?
I mean, it's just the idea. I mean, that's a good question because it's been happening. Because people talked about my parents for keeping us in DC and not moving to the suburbs. Because yet again, a suburbs is the idea of picture perfectness and the idea of I made it. And but the reality is, like, you can make it anywhere or don't make it nowhere, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, but it says with all of these crises around, and Eddie kind of said it, we have such, the scarcity construct is so ingrained in our minds, and we are in a world of plenty. If our government can send over $1 billion like that, and they can't give us 1 million, or shit, well, or even like $1 billion, like $1 billion to invest in the United States, what does that say? Like, yeah, because we haven't been invested in, and people are just so focused on living like whatever dream. So, I mean, I don't know. But to your point though, I'm with you on that one. I think we can find a place, and like, and also, and to your point though, it's time to get uncomfortable. And I mean that in the sense of, like, I hope your friend said something back to those people.
Yeah.
I honestly just sat there and just went, I think this is a beautiful place.
Right.
I don't know, but that is hard, especially in the workplace.
Yeah. Because, I mean, sometimes it's, I don't want to say we have like a hive mind, but it's comfortable to be comfortable, even though you're not really comfortable. And so it's really time to get really, truly uncomfortable and have some of these hard conversations about, like, where I am in life, about race, about sexuality, about family dynamics. Because if you want to live with like 80 people in your house and everybody's happy and way to go, then that's between you and the collective that you're living with. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not if the government says you're not allowed to have more than 6 people in this house, you know?
Right, and yeah, and it says that because some of these arbitrary rules are meant to change. Like the Constitution was meant to change. And the fact is that people forgot, like, even the Congress now, they're all like over 75, old white men. Most of them have never been in the military, and only like 2% have ever worked an hourly job, right? So what does that say about how they see people, and especially the people who
How
work?
many of them have ever been hungry or cold?
So, I wish.
You know?
So I will send y'all an email about this, because we bought the co-chairs, Liz Theo Harris and Bishop William Barber II. We went to Congress and bought people who are struggling every day, right? And a lot of them use the thing, well, you just need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do this and do that. And and one person was like, well, I grew up a poor farmer's, but they forget that they're poor, because having ever touched poverty is a secret and a sin that no one wants to talk about, right? And that's the challenge. So with that said, thank you for listening. Hope to see y'all June 18th. You know, I have information over here. I can sign you up. And just really, let's start, you know, getting uncomfortable and making stands. Thank you, John. Oh, I did bring a gift to this area. It's a flag, because we do a lot of arts and culture, and we do our own production of like our artwork, and even, or if we do like big productions, we make sure we use union shops. So I just want to give this to you for thanking us for speaking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this will be great in the barn.
Thank you for being you.
All right, thank you.
So once again, thank you to Zilla with the Poor People's Campaign. That was such an incredible and inspiring presentation. You know, it's so uplifting to have people in the community doing work, putting in so much effort to make everyone's lives better, to create, social networks and social, structures to help people in the community. And that's something that I think affects all of us. We all know someone who is in need of help, and it's often us. And like I was saying before, sometimes it's just that speed bump that you encounter. You just need a lift to get through it. And, and I was also saying that truly this is an investment in society and investment in our culture and our nation to help the people. So thank you once again, Sarah, from the Poor People's Campaign. Please check them out, the Poor People's Campaign. The information is on their website, sustainablegatherings.com. And so thank you guys so much for coming to Sustainable Gatherings. I'm so glad everyone is here. So we're going to play some house music and get ready for some music acts. Please continue to have these conversations throughout the night. Thank you.
I got you. Well, hopefully it'll be a little lighter. Hopefully it'll be a little lighter for you tonight.
What is this playing on?
There was a feeling of new growing. It doesn't sound different feeling.
So you kind of got to turn the speakers up